Every now and then, there is an episode of Doctor Who that crashes and burns, invoking the ire of fans and regular viewers alike. From the moon being an egg to a sentient paving slab, these episodes are infamously despised and are only in top 10 lists about the worst episodes of all time. But do some of these episodes deserve to be held in such low regard? In this new anthology video essay series, I shall take a step back and give these episodes a second chance. I shall defend the Despised. After a 16-year-long cancellation, Doctor Who made a triumphant return to British TV screens in 2005. The first series of New Who carved the path for a highly successful revival of Doctor Who. However, even though this series is held in fairly high regard by fans due to episodes like Dalek and the Empty Child two-parter, there are a couple of stories that have left a bit of a sour taste in people's mouths. One of these episodes is The Long Game. This mid-series episode is set in the far future and deals with the concept of the news being manipulated and construed by shadowy figures. But why do people rate it so poorly? The Long Game is actually a timeless episode. The current socio-political landscape is full of sensationalized clickbait headlines and everyone's favourite buzzword, fake news. The satire of The Long Game still works to this day. In fact, it could be argued that the episode works better now than it did in 2005. It is almost more relevant than ever because the media has developed such a sway over the population and holds a grip strong enough to form people's own opinions for them.
The right word in the right broadcast repeated often enough can destabilise an economy, invent an enemy, change a vote.
Indeed, recent world leaders have actually reached power due to the influence of the media, and in some cases reached power due to a pushback against this media influence. The Long Game is all about how in the right or wrong pair of hands, the media can stunt human progress and create an atmosphere of isolation and fear as the population retreat further into the safety of their personal technology. And that, I find, is scarier than any Dalek. The main focus of The Long Game is its blunt satire of the media and news journalism. However, people have often criticised the episode for not being subtle enough. A prominent example of this can be found in the book Who is the Doctor, where author Graham Burke writes that Russell T Davies' potshots at current trends are a pretty gentle satire. The current events in question include the invasion of Iraq and the rise of sensationalist news without substance, which have both had long-term effects that still affect us almost 15 years later. I think that the lack of subtlety in The Long Game is actually a strength. As creations like George Orwell's 1984 prove, you don't need subtlety to craft an effective satire. Perhaps the bluntness of 1984's biting satire inspired the lack of subtlety in The Long Game, as the episode was clearly inspired by the Orwellian masterpiece. Sometimes it is simply necessary to present a frank and blunt satire so you can ruffle some feathers and appeal to the layman. Another key concept in The Long Game is the idea of a failed companion. The idea of a companion being forcefully kicked out of the TARDIS for their behaviour had never really been done before. This all changed with the character Adam Mitchell. Adam was introduced in the previous episode Dalek, and he is a very interesting character to study. His personality is established quite clearly in Dalek. He is arrogant and a bit full of himself, but he is fascinated with space and dreams of travelling the stars. The Long Game explores some more of Adam's character. His thirst for knowledge proves to be his downfall, because he ends up falling into the classic time traveller's trap of wanting to know what happens in the future. In a way, Adam in The Long Game represents the average person more than Rose, because if any of us found ourselves in the future or the past, we would all find it hard to resist the urge to meddle with time. Adam's mistakes all come from a place of sincerity, but he keeps digging himself a a whole and endangers everyone because he is too arrogant to accept that he was wrong, which is evidenced at the end of the episode.
You know, it's not actually my fault, because you were in charge.
The long game also uses Adam Mitchell to explore the relationship between the Doctor and Rose. Adam serves as an outsider to their relationship, thus giving us a different view of the duo after only seeing it from Rose's perspective up to this point. Only with the presence of Adam do we see just how much Rose has changed by travelling with the Doctor. This is shown right at the start of the episode, where Rose playfully takes the place of the Doctor, confidently assessing the location and time period they are in, while Adam is the one who finds himself overwhelmed by everything. This is actually a stark contrast to the episode The End of the World, where it was Rose who found herself completely overwhelmed by the experience of being on a space station in the distant future. This creates an interesting dichotomy between the personality of Rose when she first starts travelling with the Doctor and her personality after travelling with him for a while. The long game shows just how far Rose has come as a character, because we are shown this new perspective after seeing her subtle development essentially through her own eyes. Through the perspective of Adam, we see that Rose has grown very close to the Doctor over the course of their adventures. Despite lobbying for Adam to travel with them, Rose quickly decides to join the Doctor's investigation, instead of helping Adam grow accustomed to his surroundings.
You'd rather be with him?
This shows Rose's growing loyalty and support for the Doctor, which would come to a head in the finale, where Rose refuses to leave the Doctor to face the Daleks alone. The long game is all about furthering the relationship of the Doctor and Rose before testing it significantly in the following episode, Father's Day, along with the finale Parting of the Ways. A common criticism of the long game is that there is no proper threat. However, I personally think that this is kind of the point. When the episode takes place, the regime of Satellite 5 has been in place for a very long time. The Editor and the Jagrafess aren't a threat because they already hold the power. They are not some kind of invading force. They are already the status quo. They are already in firm control, which may have been aided by the shadowy manoeuvring of the Dalek Emperor, who would go on to use the same satellite to rebuild his Dalek army. This is something I have already covered in a previous video, however. My point is that the Editor and the Jagrafess are not a threat because they are already in control and have already succeeded in stunting the growth of humanity and creating that atmosphere of isolation and news manipulation, as mentioned earlier. They already have measures in place to deal with dissent, so they underestimate the Doctor and treat him like a regular threat. This, therefore, is why the Editor and the Jagrafess don't seem to be a threat, because they are too confident with their position to bring out the big guns in order to stop the Doctor. Speaking of the Editor, Simon Pegg does a fantastic job in this episode. He hams it up in classic fashion, giving a wonderfully campy performance. Pegg really sells the smugness and creepiness of the Editor, who sees himself as incredibly witty and stylish, despite working with half-frozen zombies and taking orders from a giant alien slug hanging from the ceiling. I think there is something to be said about fans putting in great performances. Even if these actors were only fans while growing up, there have been some fantastic displays in the show. One of the biggest complaints people have about the long game is the ending. When the protagonists return to Earth, the Doctor kicks Adam out of the TARDIS, outraged by Adam's slew of dangerous and foolish decisions during the adventure. However, they knowingly leave him on present-day Earth with technology from the far future. This is certainly uncharacteristically short-sighted of the Doctor, because if Adam was to be discovered, the course of human history would change completely.
Because if you show the head to anyone, they'll dissect you in seconds. You'll have to live a very quiet life, keep out of trouble, be average, unseen. Good luck.
This, however, was revisited in the 2013 comic series Prisoners of Time, where a much older Adam teams up with the Master to capture all of the Doctor's companions in order to get revenge on the Doctor for what happened in the long game. This comic does a good job job of resolving the plot hole, and I count it as canon, but let's not open the can of worms that is Doctor Who's canon. The Doctor's decision to leave Adam with future technology is actually a good look at the duality of the Ninth Doctor. Series 1 shows us that this incarnation is highly flawed. He is far more effective at inspiring people than directly resolving issues himself. He only directly saves the day in The End of the World and Boomtown. Every other episode is resolved by side characters like Rose, Mickey, Pete Tyler and Captain Jack, to name a few. When the Ninth Doctor makes his own decisions, he often makes the wrong choice. For example, he tries to kill the Dalek at the end of Dalek, and murders Cassandra in The End of the World. Leaving Adam with future technology is a continuation of this personal journey that culminates in the Doctor having to choose whether to commit mass genocide in the series finale. The Ninth Doctor is not some superhero man of action like his other incarnations. He is a deeply flawed and troubled character who focuses on inspiring others to do the right thing, possibly due to the guilt he carries from ending the Time War with the Moment. The Long Game is a criminally underrated episode with some brilliant moments and the lovable campness that defines the Davies era of Doctor Who. The episode is a superb satire of the media industry that grows more relevant by the day, securing its place as a timeless episode warning us of an eerily likely future if we continue on our current trajectory. The Long Game also provides us with a unique outside perspective of the developing relationship between the Doctor and Rose and how it is changing each of them drastically. It is an episode that I have always enjoyed, and I believe it deserves to be re-evaluated by fans and casual viewers alike. However, it would be great if the main show resolved the dangling plot thread of Adam. I'm sure they can do it. Let's just see what Bruno Langley is up to. Oh, maybe not.